disruptive.
Weird thing to happen. We have some developing news breaking on the Freedom Flotilla, the ship, the cargo ship, the humanitarian aid that Greta Thunberg and many other activists were heading towards Gaza, which is a very bold, daring, courageous trip that they're doing. Something that I couldn't even imagine doing because I know how horrific the scenario is going to be with the IDF in Israel. Well, news has broke. This is from Suppressed News. Breaking. Footage shows the moment when Israeli forces intercepted Freedom Flotilla Madleen ship in international waters and kidnapped the 12 activists. That right there is already illegal. They're in international waters. They're kidnapping people. And they're calling this a intercepted move. This is piracy. This is piracy. So the IDF surrounded their ship and took them in as hostage, asking them to surrender and raise their hands, including EU Parliament member. The ship was hijacked and now forced by Israel to move towards Ashdod port. Their names and nationalities include Baptiste Andre, Riva Veerd, Greta Thunberg, Rima Hassan, Duab Ordu, Sergio Toribio, Mark Van Rins, Thiago Aviel, Omar Fadil, Yanis Mahamdi, Pascal Murad. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing these names, and Yasmin Acker. So those are the people in the ship that were going towards Gaza to bring humanitarian aid to the people over there when they were stopped by Israel. And here's some of the camera footage of that incident.
This is yet another war crime, added to the long list of war crimes that Israel has been committing.
We are being intercepted right now. We have way. Everyone here is safe. No one is wounded right now. Very important that you know, no one is wounded until the time they boarded our boat. Okay? Please raise the alarm.
We want you to take down all cellular immediately.
Okay, they're asking us to take over the phone.
And we want to take our phones and transport in the water right now. If I can manage to throw it in the water, I have to.
Okay, everyone, phones need to go. Phones need to go, please. Toss it in the water. Put in the water. Only Francesca is safe.
Take this.
We are taking everything down. Guys, anything that is sensitive needs to go down.
That one is another phone there.
You put the computer. Yeah, this phone is Francesca Albanese.
Signal was gone. Don't. We have no signal.
Call sign. Mike, Romeo, Alpha, Hotel,
Okay.
MMC number.
Yes, don't shoot.
3, 2, 0, 5, 7, 3,
Okay,
6,
everyone,
7.
the interception is being calm until now.
Mayday.
It's not escalating. It's okay.
Call sign. Mike, Romeo, Alpha, Hotel, 8. MMC number 2, 3, 2, 0, 5, 7, 7. Condition 1 degree.
Calm down. Calm down, everyone. Calm down. Everything's gonna be alright. Calm down.
So obviously that is a horrific scene. Again, what we said before about Greta Thunberg in previous incarnations of her when she was a climate activist for the billionaire class. I have to admit, I have to say this because of how severe, how dangerous this trek is, that I admire her spirit. I admire the people's courage, and all those people on there are doing miraculous work. Even if they didn't make it to Gaza, just being in the vicinities of this horrific genocide, knowing that there's going to be, whatever the case may be from the IDF, damages, the worst case scenario, putting your life out there to serve the needs of this gut-wrench community of people that are being slaughtered is just so courageous, so heroic, and for them to be pirated from the IDF on international waters is just it's just insane. So here is some more footage here. This is more in depth.
Please go to a place.
من فضلكم خذوا مواقعكم.
The audio here, so you can see they got their arms up. They're being innocent. No weapons on board. No defense whatsoever. These are just individuals with food and supplies going to give to the people of Gaza, breaking through that stranglehold of bringing humanitarian aid to the people of Palestine. And the IDF countered them. The IDF surrounding them with their own ships and hijacking them. Hijacking this boat. So this is a war crime that we're witnessing here. They're not only stealing the food, they're not only stealing humanitarian aid, which is already a war crime itself, but they're illegally confiscating a boat and kidnapping and arresting the people on board in international waters. That's a war crime on top of another war crime. This is just outrageous what's happening here. So here is what the Israelis put together is people have been saying this is like propaganda, because once they captured these people, once you saw what was going on when they were stopped, when they had their hands up, when they had to drop everything, now they're on the IDF boat transporting them into Israel. And what they're showing you here is it's pretending to look like, oh, I'm handing out water, I'm handing out food, and making more humane of the IDF. They're making it look like the IDF is the ones that are actually bringing humanitarian aid. Oh, they're feeding these people, these criminals that come among to Gaza and feed the people of Hamas. But this seems staged to me. This seems staged to me. You take a look.
Where is he?
So they did that intentionally, hoping that whatever mainstream media picks up on this is only going to show that part. That, oh, look, they got food, they got aid, everything's okay. Don't look into things. Greta Thunberg is still a awful person for caring about young children, for caring about the safety and feeding people in dire need. She's still an awful person, according to, the Zionists and the mainstream media. So here is Greta Thunberg herself, when knowing that she was going on this dangerous trek, knowing that her life was on the line, knowing that she's jeopardizing her own safety and her personal well-being for the needs of others, which, again, you could say what you want about Greta Thunberg. We said things in the past. Greta Thunberg definitely is on the right side of things. She's definitely on the right side of things. I think now getting older, now being a mature woman, that now she's on the right side of history. And that could be dangerous to the establishment, considering you were once the, persona non grata hero for the climate activists, now considered a dangerous threat because you're supporting the innocent lives in Palestine and not surrendering your will to the Zionists. That's how you know you're on the right side of things. So here's Greta Thunberg, her message about being caught.
My name is Greta Thunberg and I am from Sweden. If you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters by the Israeli occupational forces or forces that support Israel. I urge all my friends, family and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible.
So that is her plea to, obviously, Sweden, and her plea to other nations that are involved with the other people to help us get out of this, being pirated, being exploited by the IDF, hoping that other countries are pressuring Israel to release these individuals that were only there to serve humanitarian aid. They had no weapons. They had no intentions of attacking anyone. They were not interested in any part of the genocide whatsoever, other than the fact to feed the needs of the most vulnerable, the men, women, and children that are fortunately caught up in this. And we know that the IDF, we saw in previous articles, that the IDF purposely misled Palestinians when they thought that they were going to get humanitarian aid from U.S. cargo ships. They were bringing humanitarian aid to the southern part of Gaza, bringing everybody down there, bringing all the Palestinians down there. And then the IDF shot at those people intentionally, because the whole reason this even happens is that the IDF are diabolically programmed to go after this entire population of Palestinians intentionally for the greater Israeli project, to serve the needs of the Zionist cult, to serve the needs of Netanyahu and his warlord government that recently, before October 7th, recently before this kerfuffle, Israelis were protesting against. They were protesting against. He was about to have a trial based on his corruption. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these Hamas people just came out of nowhere, went through the Iron Dome, and captured a bunch of people and somehow killed them in a music festival. Coincidence? So, there's more to this. Here's another person who was on the flotilla. This is this guy here, Reva. How do you say that? Reva Seifert Viard. I think that's how you say it. So here's what he had to say.
My name is Reva Seifert Viard. I'm from France. If you see this video, it means that we got intercepted by the Israeli forces or complicits, and we may be in a very bad situation now. So I do ask our comrades, to our family, friends, to please share this video and put pressure on the French government so that we could be with my friends released, and also, of course, that this genocide ends. So my name is...
So here's another person. This is the, I think, Brazilian guy, the Brazilian Palestine activist, and here's what he...
Hi everyone, I'm Thiago Avila. I'm a Brazilian citizen, member of the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, and if you're watching this video, it means that I've been detained or kidnapped by Israel or another complicit force around the Mediterranean on our way to Gaza to break the siege. And in this case, I urge you to pressure my government and my comrades' governments for us to be released out of prison and to break relations with Israel, to end the genocide and end the siege that Israel is putting the Palestinian people on. We count on you right now.
So, the activists fleeing with their respected governments to help them in a time of crisis. They got sieged by Israel. They got sieged by the IDF, just serving humanitarian aid to individuals in Palestine. They've been captured. They've lost everything. They captured their ship, which is a form of piracy on international waters, which is already a illegal international crime. Of course, Israel doesn't care about. But obviously, fleeing to their respected countries, it's absolutely devastating. It's absolutely devastating. Although I wouldn't use the word comrade too often. Because, you know, mainstream media is going to pick that up and be like, oh, all of a sudden they're Russian now. They're sounding more and more like Soviets. Because they would do something like that. So here, this is from Howard Beckett. Al Jazeera report moments when Israel committed piracy by kidnapping the activists aboard the Madleen. The BBC had this morning described this as diverting the ship. So they're not calling it hijacking, piracy, illegal. They're saying they're diverting the ship. There's a huge difference between diverting a ship and seizing control. There's a difference between kidnapping and moving the ship in a different direction. And the BBC knows this, but they're dumb intentionally. They're propagandizing people, hoping that their idiot watchers don't notice this and are sucked into the propaganda by the IDF and Israel. Because that's who the BBC is serving. Just like here in Canada and the United States, they all serve their masters of the Zionists. They're not going to actually report what they observe. They're not going to report critically about what actually happened. They're going to spin this around to make it look like the people, the activists on that ship were intentionally, should be intentionally caught and make it favorable for Israel. So here's a bit. This is clipped from Al Jazeera. That BBC took that. They took the Al Jazeera clip and showed it on their morning broadcast, and that's what they said. They're diverting the ship. But you tell me if this is diverting.
Israeli quadcopters surrounded the vessel. These are pictures from the moment activists on board were told to take cover. Climate campaigner Greta Thunberg and 11 other activists were on board before communications were cut. The group was aiming to break Israel's siege on the Strip, a blockade that's illegal under international law. This is the moment the activists on board the Madleen ship were surrounded by Israeli authorities.
So they were surrounded by Israeli authorities. They got their hands up. They dropped all their communication. They got their hands up and there's searchlights on them. Tell me again how that's diverting. Tell me again how that's diverting the ship. Because that's what the BBC, they take this exact video onto their broadcast and told their viewers that, oh, they're diverting the ship. They're not taking over the ship. They're not stealing the humanitarian aid. They're not arresting the people on board. They're not held in captivity by Israel. No, they're just diverting the ship. Remember, this is the same media that's peddling for acts of violence towards these people. Same media. And here's something else to add to this. So it was enough for Turkey to call out Israel. So you know that the UK, Germany, Canada, and a lot of Americans, maybe not the American government or the American media per se, but Americans are losing support in Israel. They're losing. And Israel's losing their credibility so badly that, surprise, surprise, it wouldn't surprise me. I haven't, I'm not putting my foot down and I'm not accepting nor denying the fact that 2 random instances of anti-Semitism just occurred recently as this news is breaking out. Coincidence? Maybe so. So, Middle East Eye reports Turkey calls Israel a terrorist state over seizure of Gaza aid ship, the Madleen. Turkish Foreign Ministry says Israel raid the Gaza-bound ship is a clear violation of international law. The Turkish government on Monday accused Israel of being a terrorist state after its forces intercepted the Madleen, a vessel carrying humanitarian aid to Gaza, in international waters. The ship, which had 2 Turkish citizens among 12 activists on board, was prevented from reaching the besieged Palestinian enclave in the early hours of Monday. Turkish officials described the incident as a clear violation of international law, accusing the Israeli government of jeopardizing both maritime security and freedom of navigation. This heinous act by the Netanyahu government, which also threatens the freedom of navigation and maritime security, has once again proven that Israel is a terrorist state, the Turkish Foreign Ministry said in a statement. Turkish Foreign Ministry sources told MEE that Turkey's Tel Aviv embassy has been taking the necessary steps to ensure that Turkish citizens are released as soon as possible. The 2 Turkish citizens who have been on board the Madleen are Yasmin Akar, who is a dual German-Turkish national, and Suab Ordu. The Israeli forces seized control of the charity vessel, which is aiming to break the blockade of the Gaza Strip and detain its crew, including activist Greta Thunberg, Israel officials said. So they even admit that they sieged control of the charity vessel. They didn't divert it. They didn't just move it off course. They didn't move it to safety. They weren't giving them out sandwiches and humanitarian aid and respect for them. They purposely sieged the ship. And we knew Israel was capable of doing this. In fact, Israel could have done a lot worse. But I think with Greta Thunberg on that ship, that was the saving grace. You have, very well-known international people on this ship. I don't think Israel was going to mess with that because that would lose all the credibility. The British flag yacht Madleen, operated by the pro-Palestinian Freedom Flotilla Coalition, was aiming to deliver a symbolic amount of humanitarian aid, including rice and baby formula, to Gaza later on Monday, and to raise international awareness of the humanitarian crisis there. However, the boat was intercepted in the early hours of Monday before it could reach Gaza, the FFC told on its Telegram account. Israel has vowed to prevent the vessel from reaching Gaza, stating its military would use any means necessary to stop it from breaching the naval blockade. Any means necessary. So they're openly stating that they're willing to violate international law, that they're doing a war crime. As we know, Israel's done numerous amounts of war crimes. As we know, Israel is not part of the international court. Surprise. Because they want to get away with as much as possible, as much damage as possible, and they will stop at nothing to flourish the rest of this hideous agenda of the greater Israeli project, of the Zionist cult philosophy, and the works of a warlord like Netanyahu. That's the whole intention of all this. And nothing to do with October 7th, and nothing to do with saving the hostages. Isn't it kind of ironic that Israel is taking Greta Thunberg and activists hostage at this moment while they're still complaining about saving the hostages from Hamas? Isn't that kind of interesting? They're going to kidnap and siege control of a humanitarian aid boat and keep them as hostages, keep them in captivity, while they're still complaining about how we have to go after Palestine to save their hostages. I guess they're irony impaired. Among the activists on the intercepted voyage was Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg, Rima Hassan, a French member of the European Parliament, and Turkish citizen activist Suab Ordu. The FC reported that quadcopters surrounded the aid ship and sprayed it with a white liquid. This is not the first time Turkey has faced an Israeli interception of an aid ship carrying Turkish citizens bound on for Gaza. In 2010, Israel raided a Gaza-bound flotilla transporting activists and humanitarian aid, killing 10 Turkish citizens and arresting dozens of Turkish activists. So, again, October 7th is not the full story. What happened on that day may have been horrific, but that is not the full story. The full story goes as far back as the formation of Israel, the Nakba, the first enclave of destroying Palestine and seizing land. It goes as far back as then, and even further back, when they were trying to formulate this safe space for Jewish people, which nowadays, it's not even safe for Jewish people. Because the Jews that are against this, the actual people that are Jewish that don't subscribe to Zionism, as Ben Shapiro would say, the self-hating Jews, They're being beaten up in Israel. They're being beaten up in Israel because they don't support this, because they don't support the Zionist cult that has been demonizing their religion purposely to conflate the two, that Zionism can get away with this. The incident triggered a major crisis in Turkish-Israeli relations that lasted for years. Israel later apologized and agreed to pay compensation in a U.S. broker deal in 2013. So, you look at the record, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other incidences just like this. And yet you want to tell me that children in Palestine are the worst threat to humanity. They're the ones that need to suffer. They're the ones that need to be blown apart, destroyed to bits, be mowed down on dirt roads that you've already destroyed. Ankara's statement also accused Israel of using hunger as a weapon and reiterated its longstanding support for the Palestinian cause. Israel's aggressive and lawless attitude will not be able to silence those who defend human values, it said, adding that international community's justified reaction to Israel's genocidal policies in Gaza would continue. The incident comes amid mounting international criticism of Israel's ongoing military campaign in Gaza, which has sparked widespread protests and calls for accountability over alleged war crimes and the prevention of vital humanitarian aid deliveries. Various aid organizations and UN agencies accuse Israel of committing genocide in Gaza following the October 7, 2023 Hamas-led attack on Israel. Turkish-Israeli relations have been deeply deteriorated since then, with Ankara imposing a total trade embargo and joining a genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. According to Palestine health and government officials, since October 2023, at least 54,880 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces, of whom 28,000 are women and girls. Among those killed, at least 1,400 are health sector workers, over 300 UN aid workers, and more than 220 journalists. So, like I said, from the start of this had nothing to do with October 7th. This has nothing to do with saving the hostages. This had nothing to do with the incident at the music festival. This was a full-on attack. They needed an October 7th-like scenario to pander to people, to fearmonger, to scare people, to bait people into allowing and accepting the full-on attack on Palestinians, which is something that they've been cooking the books since the Nakba. This is all part of the Israeli propaganda machine. This is all part of the Greater Israel Project. This is all part of Netanyahu's fantasy. This is all part of the Zionist cult that they're going after, not just men, women, children in Palestine, but healthcare workers, UN aid workers. Look at World Kitchen, what happened with them. Journalists, they're attacking them. And they even sent death threats to supporters overseas in other countries that are just wanting to stop the bloodshed, that want to save the lives of innocent children that are being caught up in this. So now you lost Turkey. So you lost UK, Canada, a lot of Americans. Australia, I think, is on that list now. You're losing a lot of support even with your own people. Your own people within Israel are jumping ship. They don't want to deal with this crap. They don't want to be blamed for the rest of their lives on being a part, being assisted to, being accessory to this genocide. And now Turkey. They're losing support fast, which is, again, why it's so a coincidence that as this news was breaking out, there was the two major attacks, the anti-Semitic attacks in Washington, D.C. and Boulder, Colorado. Not saying that they're a false flag, not confirming, not denying that, but very, very much of a coincidence. And, of course, this is going to get backlash from more Zionists because they're going to have to double down and just do the worst of the worst. This is not even an argument. This is just them attacking somebody. As Caitlin Johnstone points out, Sky News smears Greta Thunberg as a Nazi to justify the IDF attack. So to justify Israeli ships sieging a humanitarian aid vessel, a charity vessel, in an act of piracy on international waters, they're referring to Greta Thunberg as a Nazi. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, in World War II, it was the Nazis that served food, water, and shelter to Jewish people, right? That's how that story went. Oh no, it was the complete opposite. They were the Nazis. They were the Nazis. They were sieging residences. They were taking down people. They were openly making violent threats to people that weren't part of the organization. Funny how things repeat. Shortly before the IDF raided the Madleen, Sky News host Jonathan Samuels strongly implied that the ship deserved to be attacked because it was full of anti-Semites and Hamas supporters. As we've shown before about the Freedom Flotilla, the organization and the ship, and all the people that aborted this ship, not one of them even mentioned Hamas. Not one of them mentioned about Hamas. Not one of them mentioned about Judaism. But, of course, they're going to say this on Sky News, hoping that the suckers at home that are gobbling this down get fooled by this. Oh, yeah, Greta Thunberg is such a Zionist, or such an anti-Semite and a Hamas supporter. Oh, Greta Thunberg is a Nazi. Even though just, a couple of years ago, she was a sweetheart for being a climate activist. Funny how things change. Press News reminds us, in case you missed it, Israeli soldiers are the ones taking depraved selfies, sometimes even wearing women's underwear. Israel intercepted the Madleen Freedom Flotilla in international waters, which is illegal. They kidnapped 12 activists, including a European diplomat, Rima Hassan. Israel continues their illegal naval blockade. So this is who the IDF is. They go and raid someone's home. They kill a bunch of family members that had nothing to do with Hamas, nothing to do with October 7th. They go and slaughter those people. And then take their unmentionables, take their clothing, take their underwear, and parade around it like it's some sort of victory. That's what scumbags these people are. These are demonic people. These are people with no souls. And some will say, well, they're following orders from Netanyahu. There's nothing they could have done. There's a lot of things you could have done. A lot of things they could have done. But these are people that have been brainwashed by generations after generations to go after the Palestinians because it's part of this cult. It is part of the cult. And without that brainwashing, without blackmailing other countries to comply, without suppressing information about Israel, without calling anti-Semitism, Israel would not exist. There would not be a need for Israel if there wasn't anti-Semitism. But since they call everything anti-Semitism and they want to cry it out like the boy cried wolf, that gives them more of an excuse to do this. That's why they push it. So here is not a journalist, but the father of a journalist, Gabor Mate, who is the father of Aaron Mate. Aaron Mate, who does excellent work. I highly recommend people check him out. So here's Gabor Mate, who is a psychologist. He writes books on trauma. He's very good at, in-depth kind of traumatic situations, how people grow and experience from trauma and learn from their damages. Here he is expressing his sympathy for the people on the flotilla. And this is coming from someone, not only a psychologist on trauma, which obviously it's a traumatic experience for that, but also as a Holocaust survivor and a Jewish person. So you can't really call this out. You can't really call this out. And if I know for a fact a Zionist would call this out, which shows how empty they are. That they're going to call out a Jewish Holocaust survivor just because he is supporting the mission of serving the needs of people in Palestine. So listen to what he says.
Hi, my name is Gabor Mate. This is a message for the crew and travelers amongst the boat, the Madleen. People, I'm Jewish. I'm an infant survivor of the Holocaust. I'm in Poland right now, where I just visited the monument to the brave fighters of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, a small group of people who took on the greatest military in the world, knowing that they can't possibly win, but they fought courageously. Today, you represent those fighters. Today, you represent that small group that's willing to stand up against one of the most murderous militaries in the world, supported by all the world's great powers. And you are carrying all of humanity with you. When I say humanity, I don't mean all human beings, but I mean all human beings whose hearts are open, who believe in justice, who believe in freedom, and who support and are moved by and full of admiration for what you're doing. My heart is with you. I wish you all the best. Even if you don't achieve your objective of reaching Gaza, which of course I will not let you, you have already won. You've already scored a great victory for humanity. Thank you.
There you go. Some lovely words of encouragement there from a Jewish Holocaust survivor. And because he knows how dangerous this is. I know how dangerous this is. I couldn't imagine being in that situation. I couldn't even begin to think about, putting your life on the line to give food and medicine to people of Palestine.